All right, well, good afternoon. Welcome back. Our staff is excited to be back to work. Our players are excited to be here. I'm really excited about having my opening press conference. I'm fired up. I think that most of my quick introduction is going to be personnel driven to try to alleviate a lot of the questions right from the start. I know there'll be a number of questions. Everything's fair game here. I think that the way I've set this up for camp, once again, for media access, I think most of you will be pleased by the spread out instead of trying to bombard everyone all at the same time. Tomorrow I got a half dozen offensive players. I gave them to Katie. Katie can give them to you afterwards if you'd like them. The next day there'll be a half dozen defensive players. The next day it'll be offensive coaches. The next day it'll be defensive coaches. And then there's a lot of new players here that I know that you'd like to talk to, so I'll make them available the next day. Once we get through those first 6 days, then we'll start hitting more, position coaches and their players. And once again, just work through Katie, get anything, requests to Katie. And for most of you, you'll find out I'm usually pretty good at saying yes to just about everything. Every once in a while, you'll ask for somebody that's 8th team, and I'll really question why you're asking for them. So I will usually say no when that ends up happening. But for the most part, I try to work with you because this is a necessary part of the job, and I want to make your jobs a little easier if I possibly can. Coming back, one of my biggest concerns, walking back in the door, were how our academics were, and obviously the new players coming in. I was very, very, very pleased with our academic performance in the summertime. I don't know if I've ever had grades this good as a group, to tell you the truth. The grade point average in the summertime was a 3.11. Normally in the summertime, trying to keep their focus and attention, even though they're only taking a class or two, becomes much more difficult because it's summertime, just like everybody else. The weather's warm, we want to be outside, but I was very, very pleased. There were a couple guys that were borderline. Are they going to get on probation academically? No one's on probation. Everyone's got a clear slate. I was very pleased overall academically. The next point of order, obviously, was the big, how many of these guys are going to end up being here? I mean, no matter where I am, if I ran into a Jayhawk fan, he was, well, so-and-so there yet? Is so-and-so coming? So let's get that cleared up. Everybody is here at this time already, except for Pierce Slater and Kevin Short. Okay, Pierce Slater's landing here, 1:55 Saturday afternoon. He's going to come here, he's going to get his stuff on, I'm going to get his butt out to practice as quickly as I can. Unfortunately, you guys won't miss him, but I told Katie to make sure you take a picture. You won't miss him, trust me. But we'll be here Saturday afternoon. Kevin has wrapped up he had 2 classes left to go. He had a very, very active, busy summer academically. He had 2 classes left to go. He finished one of them last night, and he should be finishing the other one by the end of this week, okay? And as long as his grades are in order, we hope to have him here in a short time. It could be as early as this weekend. It could be as late as another week because, I think the way it works, you have to wait till you get the paperwork from the schools to say they have their A degree and they're ready to go, but everyone else is ready to go. You saw on the depth chart, I listed 2 guys in the bottom left-hand corner as already redshirt. Marcus Jenkins Moore had a procedure done on his knee. I think because of where he is medically and because he's a 3 for 2, I think that he would be in the best interest to him would be to go spend this year rehabbing and make sure he was full go, ready to go, can worry about his academics, can learn our system, okay, can regain some of his strength that he's lost since the surgery, and put him in a position where we could have him around for 2 more years with him perfectly healthy. The other one, Nick Harwell, obviously all the the information with that one. The bottom line was He was never allowed to complete his last 6 hours unless somebody waves a magic wand, you know, and does something that I'm not anticipating here in the next short amount of time. He's already in the building here today, so unless somebody waves a magic wand, my intent with him is to treat, you know, Jenkins Moore and Nick Harwell like I did Jake Heaps and Justin McKay last year. You know, just work on everything football related. Let them get their academics in order. Let them work on community service. There's a bunch of things they could do to make themselves better people and better prepared and proud Jayhawks when they end up leaving here, and that's what I intend to do with both of those young men. Other than that, other than Marcus Jenkins Moore, the only guy who's not 100% is Tyree Williams, and he's on. You know, I have him listed as a third safety. He probably isn't. He's not 100% healthy, so he wouldn't run with the third group right now. We'll try to get him to 100% as quick as we can to get him into the mix. But knock on wood, walking in the door, he's the only guy. He's the only guy who isn't a go. All those JUCO guys that you're all questioning about, they've all cleared. They're all in school and they're all here. Okay, so that'll eliminate all those questions. Okay, is so-and-so here, so-and-so here, so-and-so here? You know, fortunately, I have to give a lot of congratulations to 3 people when it came to this. One of my staff would be Rob Iannello, but Paul Buskirk, okay, has done a wonderful job helping guide us through this, and David Reed in compliance. Those 2 guys, along with Coach Iannello and myself, have been going through a lot of work. Obviously, when you go this route that we took to bring in so many guys, so many transfers, JUCO transfers in particular, to get all their academics in order, was quite a challenge. And as I told you, they'd be coming in waves. Well, you know, I was prophetic on that one because that's really the way this has turned out. So I'm very happy that that's where we are right now. Let's be a little bit more specific and let's talk about some things on the depth chart. Last year at this time, I had a tough time giving you 2 deep. And I probably had a tough time giving you 1 deep in some cases. Okay, but what I did this year is I put down a 3 deep. It doesn't have every player on the team, okay, and in some cases there'll be 4 guys in a position because a 3rd guy might be this guy or that guy. Okay, so in some positions I've listed 4, but I've been able to list a 3 deep, realizing that the first couple days, like with Slater not there in the first couple days, then he obviously won't be running the second right tackle. In reality, even though Fondle is listed as a second left tackle, I will probably put Fondle at right tackle with the second group until Slater gets here, so that I can cross-train Fondle and have him ready to play right tackle or left tackle. I'm using that as an example. So don't make it an earth-shattering thing, Tate, when we go out there and we're doing starts and you see, well, Fondle's at right tackle. He lied to us. No, I'm not lying to you. I'm just, you know, we have to build in some inherent depth with guys that can play right side or left side, and that's the type of thing we'll do. The same thing, you see Kevin Short backed up behind Dexter McDonald. Oh no, aren't they both going to be starters? Why wouldn't we put them on the opposite sides? Because one of them's not here. If they were both here, maybe one would be on one side and one would be on the other side. So when we go to the second right corner, Greg Allen will be running the second right corner. Okay, that's the reason why we do that. So you have to factor in the 2 guys that you don't have here yet. You factor that in and as you get ready for reps with who you have. Okay, another issue, who's going to play center? Well, you'll notice Pat Lewandowski is listed as our starting center. We've been working on this for quite some time. Just because you guys didn't know it, you know, that doesn't mean that we haven't been working on this for months. Okay, we did get Dylan Admire up to 280, you know, which, you know, he's that's his main thing. You know, he's probably one of the hardest working guys that we got on our team, who's in competition at center, but Lewandowski is well over 290 now. Okay, those are 2 of the smartest players that we have on our team, and in this offense you need a center that's got intelligence, and that's the way we're doing it. Obviously, Smithburg played a lot of center in the spring. Okay, you saw the shotgun snap problems. I'm not that stupid, in case you're wondering. Okay, I saw them too. That's why he's back at guard where he's much more comfortable. And should be a nice competition over there with Damon Martin right behind him, because Damon Martin is testing out as probably one of the strongest people on our team. Okay, at right tackle, the other guy who you definitely see in the mix is Brian Beckman. We're really high on Brian, but he's a redshirt freshman, you know, but we think that he has a chance to go ahead and compete for us. At center, I talked about Lewandowski and Admire. You will notice that I put Joe Gibson down as the third center, which although he's a local walk-on, he's really had a heck of a summer, and he's gained about 15 pounds, and he's been very encouraging with him and Bloomfield coming in. Those guys have been very encouraging. Over at the left guard position, and I don't have to look at the depth chart, I kind of have this figured out. At the left guard position, Nalu is trimmed down about 20 pounds. He's down to, I don't know if it's listed at 310 or whatever it's at, but he's trimmed way down. He looks way better than he did in the spring. That'll be a nice competition with Randall Dent, and Brian Peters had a nice spring for us as well. You'll notice we moved Aslam from the right side to the left side. Aslam is the most changed player we've had on our team. Last year at this time, whatever weight he was down, I lied, he was probably about 400. Okay, he's 315. He's done a great job on and off the field. Academically, he had a lot of work to do. He got it all done, did well. His body's changed. I mean, he's a totally different person on and off the field than when he got here. And we really believe athletically, you know, he's a guy who could handle the left tackle spot. Fondle is definitely a guy who we are high on athletically and could play left tackle. But once again, I'm going to cross-train him and see to give him an opportunity to try to get into this mix. We know Riley Spencer's over there at right tackle, the big physical guy who's been here a long time coming off an injury. So that pretty well sets it for the offensive line. The tight end, we think we have a lot of depth there. Jermaine Mundine has reformed his body. He looks totally different. It's going to be tough for anyone to beat him out. Smiley's back from his injury in the spring. The two young guys, Jordan Taylor and Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson came here when I started recruiting him. He was about 210. He's about 240 now. It probably says 238 or something like that, but he looks like a totally different person. And you know, Charles Brooks is still in contention there, but I want to see what those young guys could do in a hurry, because I've been really high on Jordan Smith, and Ben Johnson had the best summer of any of the young guys on the field. Okay, the wide receiver position, McKay is listed as a start next. Josh Ford earned the right to be listed second based off his performance in the spring. You know, Mark Thomas is in along with Ishmael Hyman. We'll see how it goes. Right now, I cost listed them as 3, but you know, we haven't seen them do too much yet. You know, we're really high on both those players. Let's see if they can work their way up the depth chart. Over on the right side at the Z, Christian Matthews has been the leader at the wide receiver position through the spring and in the summer. He's been by far the leader, and he's not going to give this position away to anyone very easily, even though he hasn't played a lot. Trey Parmley had a really good summer, and we're really high on Rod Coleman. You got Rod Coleman and Terzilli listed at the strong Z, at the third Z, and like I said, we'll just have to see how it plays out at that position. Like I said, I didn't mention everyone, but there's 4. Now let's go to the F position. You'll notice Tony's there, and you see an interesting thing. You'll see Bourbon listed as the backup with Tony. We got too many running backs that got talent to sit them on the bench. So what I've done is I've taken this position and kind of have this hybrid position, this F position that Tony's the feature. When Bourbon would be in there, we would do some of the stuff we do with Tony, and then some of the stuff we do with Tony we wouldn't do. You know, so Bourbon's a little different category, but what we don't want Bourbon to do, we're really high on Brandon, and we don't want him getting buried in the halfback depth chart and not getting himself onto the field. So now we put him in a position where now he can get himself into the mix. Over at the halfback position, Sims the starter. You can see Cox or Miller, Miller or Cox. It really doesn't make a difference. Those, there's going to be great competition. And you could have said it really, Sims or those guys. The halfback position has a lot of good, talented players. At the quarterback position, Heaps is number 1, Cummings is number 2. The 2 freshmen I have listed 3 or 4. It'll be really interesting to see how all this plays out. Does Michael challenge Jake? Okay, does Montel or Jordan challenge Michael? That's what we're going to have, the questions we're going to have to answer going through this spring. Okay, on special teams, you'll notice now, let's start with the kickoff guy. I separated the kickoff guy from the place kicker. I really don't expect it to be the same person. I think the kickoff guy is going to come really from 1 or 2 people. I think it's either going to be Perdula or Khan being the kickoff guy. And the field goal kicker, I think that Perdula has the strongest leg, but it's not going to surprise me if Mesh is the field goal kicker. We have Wyman, we have Barone, we have those other guys that are going to be in this mix right here. But I'm really high on Mesh right now, but we'll have to see him do it, out there in practice, because he just got here. Okay, at punter, it's going to be Perdula or Doherty. We'll handle that. Long snapper, we got 3 candidates. We're really high on Wordle, who we brought in from Chicago. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up doing all the snapping. Okay, but for the time being, Jeffers would be ahead of Zach Young. Zach Young had been here last year. He was a transfer from Indiana, but had to sit out last year because he was a transfer. So we got 3 guys at the long snapping position, and we're high on the new guy. Okay, last but not least, as far as personnel goes, let's talk about defense. Now, obviously, defense in this league has changed. This league has evolved. There's so many teams that are snapping, they're not only running no huddle, but snapping the ball so fast. I really had to do a lot of study in the month of December and January, before we even got to February, to sit down with my defensive staff and say, fellas, we're going to make a bunch of changes if we're going to compete in this league. So the first thing you'll see is we're listing our defense as a nickel defense. We're not listed as a base defense. We're listed as a nickel because everyone's got 3 and 4 wide receivers right there, and you can't match up base defense against 3 and 4 wide receivers and be competitive in this league. The other thing you can't do is be flipping people from side to side the whole game and think that you're going to get lined up in time before they snap the ball. The other thing we have to do is we have to have the 3 main defensive coaches. No disrespect to Vestal, who I hired, but they all have to be on the field coaching. Campo's got to be on the field to give coaching points to the secondary. Bowen's got to be on the field to give coaching points to the linebackers. Okay, Buddy's got to be on the field to give coaching points to the defensive linemen. All 3 of them have been coordinators in their careers. Okay, and they got to give coaching points. And really, the guy who's going to tie it all together the most would be the linebacker coach. So Bowen's going to have to help put this together more than even Dave's going to, if we're going to be able to handle the tempo of the game. The tempo of the game has dictated us going to almost no-huddle defense to match no-huddle offense, and go from base defense to a nickel defense to even dime or quarter or somewhat even more extravagant, where we even get more guys on the field that are secondary type players. You don't have time to flip-flop them all over. Okay, with that being said, let me start with the defensive line. Keon's listed at the nose. McKinney has not beaten out Kevin Young yet, so that competition should be interesting, but Keon is by far the leader at nose. Now you look at the left end / tackle and right end / tackle positions. The reason why they're there like that is because if we're not flip-flopping sides, these guys could be at a defensive tackle position, or they could be at a defensive end position based off of the defensive front. But they don't have time to flip from one side to the other side. So sometimes they're going to be an end, sometimes they're going to be a tackle, okay, but they're going to be on the left side of Keon or the right side of Keon. Okay, so at the left end I got Combs, Tavai, and Tadarian. Okay, on the right side I have Kiba, then Andrew, and then Tyler Holmes. Okay, so that's how that's listed on that depth. Okay, to be able to have 9 defensive linemen who kind of like some, it's a far cry from when I walked in the door here. We actually are really looking forward to the competition, even in training camp, because we think we got some solid backup linemen on both sides of the ball that'll give us a chance to be much more competitive against each other while we're practicing. The buck position. You know, it's been well documented that, you know, we had Chris in here and he's gone. Okay, I had Ben Goodman, who's one of my favorite on-the-field players, drop 15 pounds. So he's now 245 pounds, okay, which is the weight I told him I wanted to get to play the buck linebacker position. So he is now listed as a starting buck, and behind him will either be Willis or Reynolds. You know, Willis has much more leadership. Reynolds has more athletic ability. We're going to see how that plays out between the two of them. On the other side is our nickel. Okay, so you'll see that's a drastic change from the springtime. You'll see Cassius. Now everyone wants to know, is Cassius a corner, Cassius a safety? Well, he's a nickel. Okay, so on the first two. Okay, but really, we know that we can move Cassius to corner or safety and have practiced him at both positions. But right now, with what we're doing, okay, Cassius would be our starting nickel. You'll also notice that we moved Victor Simmons out there to that position. Victor Simmons looks like a man playing amongst boys physically. I mean, when you look at him, he's up to 220 pounds. He looks absolutely awesome. We don't want him getting buried at the inside linebacker position. We're giving him a chance to compete. That's why he's ahead of Arnick, who most of the spring was our first guy over in that position. Okay, our 2 inside linebacker positions will also be very competitive. You got Heaney, backed up by Schuyler, backed up by Goez, who we're high on as a freshman. And then at the will position, Sampson hasn't done enough, you know, at this point to unseat Jake. So you got Jake, and then you got Sampson, and then you got Prince Candy. We also know that both Prince and Jake have played outside. So if for some reason Sampson were to beat Jake out, you know, Jake is always a contender for us to move to one of the outside linebacker positions. Okay, at the corner positions, right now the first 2 guys would be Dexter and Jacory. Okay, they go out with the first group. If Kevin were here, okay, that might be different, but he's not here. We listed Kevin as a 2 along with Holloman, and then the third group we got Nasmore and Greg Allen. You know, obviously, you know, Greg will pop up to number 2, and let's see what he can do at that position. Okay, at the strong safety position, Isaiah Johnson, and you know, and Tevin Shaw and Brian Moore are down there. And at the free safety position, we got Dexter Linton and Alex Matlock. Okay, and then Tyree, who's not healthy at this time. So that pretty well gives you, you know, kind of our depth chart, gives you the biggest issue that we had as a staff, okay, was the formation, taking a defense that we could take all these new guys, factor in the speed of the game, okay, factor in our coaching staff, okay, and try to come up with a game plan of what we want to do and how we're going to practice it, in training camp, so that by September 7th, a month from now, we could have integrated a lot of these guys into a system that we could be ready to go when we kick off on September 7th. And on that note, I will now open it up to questions.
Coach, obviously listing the 3Ds and the depth you're talking about is great for competition and all that, but does it mean there'll be a shorter leash with some of these guys if they're not getting the job done, and will you be more free to, hey, let's try this guy, let's try that guy?
I think that in the beginning, the depth chart will be fluid, okay, and they will have from now until August 17th to state their claim. So I'll already give you my drop dead date. Okay, they'll have from now to August 17th. If they're not in the mix on August 17th, okay, then they're basically going to become more of show team players. But I think that I owe it to every player on the team to see what we got. You know, don't have too short a leash, no, because I think if you do that, you could make a mistake and make a rash decision, you know, because you got more players. I think you let everyone be into the mix, until that time. And then you kind of take that is like our drop dead date where we start saying, okay, who's really in the mix, who's really not in the mix. Like you guys want to talk about red shirt guys, I never tell a guy to come in here expecting a red shirt. I don't tell any freshman to come in here expect a red shirt. Okay, that's just a product of the environment. If a guy's not going to play and you don't need to use him, it would benefit him not playing. Okay, but what if a guy comes in there and he's the best guy? What if Colton Goaz, who's listed as a third Mike, is one of our best pass rushers? So even though he's listed as a third Mike, what he did the best in high school was pass rush. Well, we could use some pass rush. So who knows? Maybe he ends up playing situational football. The problem is with the speed of the game, you don't have a lot of time to substitute anymore. You just don't have time. So you got to be ready to play with the guys that are on the field. That's why you better set up a foundation. But the answer to your question would be, after August 17th, that's when we would make those decisions.
Talk about bringing the defensive coaches down to the field. What's the give and take there? What things you maybe sacrifice by not having them up top?
Well, in the olden days, you'd sit there, you'd watch the offensive personnel substitution, you'd send your personnel out on the field, okay, and your defensive call based off of down and distance and hash mark. Well, I mean, you can't do that. So a lot of it is coaching on the fly. So you're going to have to signal something where everyone's going to have to be able to look over to see what it is, because they don't even have time for a signal caller. A lot of times the signal caller doesn't even have time to signal to everyone what it is. So, you're going to have multiple guys trying to get the message across. Everyone look at the sideline, here's the defense, let's go ahead and go. That's what you're going to have to do. Now, how can you do that if you're upstairs? You just can't do it. So Dave was upstairs last year. He can't be up there and coach the secondary. It just doesn't work. Now Scott, who's probably one of the best set of eyes we have, is Scott Vestal. Even though he's new, he's a real student of the game. His major, we just had this conversation again this morning. During a drive, his main thing is going to be down and distance and field position, and if personnel changes. His real value will come in between series when we say, okay, here's what they did, here's how they did something different. But as far as play to play, everything happens on the field and it happens quickly. The ball's being snapped, every 10 to 20 seconds. You have to do things. You have to be ready as quickly as them, or else you're not ready to go.
The continuity of camp, how big was it to have almost everybody here and ready to go on day one?
Well, I mean, I'm really not that different than you, Austin, if you think about it. These guys have come in waves, just so I said, but some of them just walked in the door today. But having them here, and knowing, okay, I can give you a depth chart and be able to say, well, he's here. Well, I think he's going to be here. Well, he may be here. Well, maybe I don't even put him on a depth chart. I think that being able to say, okay, here's what we got going from day one, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to move forward right from the start.
Coach, your kids in Dallas all remarked about how difficult the summer was, how hard and difficult under Holsopple. Can you talk about the summer and how pleased you are, and also the difference in the kids physically as a whole compared to last year?
Well, my favorite part of my conversation with the Holsopple is his book of body changes, because he comes in and shows you 2 pictures, and it's really disgusting. I mean, you look at the pictures, I'd say if he showed me 80 pictures, 75 of them are just like, you can't even believe it's the same kid. It's that high a percentage. And you say to yourself, how can a guy's body change that much in that short a time? You just can't imagine how that happens. Now, I'm not saying that automatically correlates to winning games. But obviously, by deductive reasoning, you could figure these guys had to be working their butt off, because the bodies just don't change. I always believe a picture's worth 1,000 words, and when he sits there and shows me those pictures, I look at the numbers, I see how much more they can bench, and what their weight changes and everything. But looking at their bodies then and their bodies now, that's probably the biggest testament that I have. Look, I know what I'm getting from Coach Hosoppel and his staff. I know what I'm getting from them every day. Okay, but the biggest, most encouraging thing is when you get more and more guys on board. You're never going to get everyone on board. There's always players that are going to think they're getting shafted. That's part of sports. But it's more and more and more. Each day there's more and more guys. And when the players start doing the policing, instead of the coaches start doing the policing, you're a far better off team.
Coach Nick Harwell obviously would have come in as one of the receivers with the most experience by far. How much of a drop-off is there from Harwell to Justin to Christian Matthews in terms of anticipation and what you expect from these guys and what they can do?
First of all, Justin McKay was one of the highest-rated receivers coming out of in the country. I know that because I was recruiting him to that other school. I mean, no one was higher rated than Justin McKay. I mean, I think Justin McKay has an opportunity to be a top-line receiver. Tony is really playing a good portion of the time. He's really playing the wide receiver position a good portion of the time. So tell me, we don't have too many guys that are like Tony, okay? And I think that you're going to be pleasantly surprised with a couple of those guys over at that position. Would we have loved to have Nick? You betcha. Is Nick a guy who was highly thought of, by even NFL guys and everything? You betcha. But you know what this is? This is a great year for Nick. It didn't work out the way Nick wanted or we wanted. But what do I get? I get him to come in here. Okay, he gets a whole year to put that all behind him. Okay, and we can work on a bunch of things on and off the field so that next year when he's ready to go, okay, he'll even be more fired up, and so will the rest of us. Next year at this time, we'll be really happy we have him. We're just not as happy this year. It is what it is.
With some of these guys that sort of moved around, you kind of mentioned this, but somebody like Greg Allen, now back at corner, or Brian Mora, I know you can't see much during the summer, so what do you base those kind of decisions on?
Greg Allen has corner skills that can play safety.
Okay.
Okay. Most guys that play safety don't have corner skills. Okay, they have safety skills.
Right.
That's why Cassius is different.
Okay.
Cassius has corner skills that can play safety. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure where Cassius ends up. Right now, he's our nickel, and if we were going to play a game today, he'd be our nickel. But what if Victor Simmons plays great, and Cassius now can go play one of the safety positions? He gives us some flexibility, so does Greg. But what you don't want Greg to do is get buried to the point where he can't get on the field. So what you try to do is you put him in a situation where you think he has a chance of getting on the field.
All these guys on the depth chart, especially a lot of these new guys, it seems like versatility is a big factor in all these guys. Was that something you guys, when you went into the recruiting process, that you guys targeted guys that can play several different positions, or is that something that just kind of materialized based off where you're at and what you had already?
Well, versatility is a wonderful quality to have, but the first reason why we liked them is because they were good at what they did. They were good at a specific position. I mean, Rod Coleman. We've been missing some speed around here, and he's got some. I'm using him as an example. So all of a sudden you go out there, Christian might be one of the most dependable guys we have on our team. He'll never be fast. Christian's never going to be fast. As the NFL people would say, he's quicker than fast. Okay, Rod's fast. There's a difference. I mean, so when a guy comes in, if they end up being a returner or something else for you, great. But the first things first is to get that one quality you brought him in for, and then whatever else you get after that is a bonus. That flexibility and everything, that's a bonus. Anything you can get from those things, that's an add-on.
Is this nickel look a statement about the speed? I know that's one thing you and Coach Campbell have been trying to upgrade since you got here. Does the nickel look say, hey, we can get by without the exact speed we want, or are you getting there?
What a nickel does is let you match up versus all the spread.
Sure. That's
the reason why you do it. I mean, because if you don't, you're getting mismatched by having linebackers running against wide receivers all over the place. That's why don't rule out us going in the other direction and going to 6 DBs, not to 4 DBs, or to 7 DBs. It's all the nature of the game right there. You have to be ready. We've spent a lot of time here now, and it's not where we've changed really what we did in the spring. We just changed who's doing what we're doing in the spring, and that was going to happen when the reinforcements came anyway. There was going to be a lot of tweaks in the depth chart when everyone got here, so now we kind of got everyone in place, knowing which people. Like I said before, Jake Love. Jake Love's played outside linebacker here. Right now, he's their starting well. But what if Sampson beats him out? You want him sitting on a bench, or what if he's better than somebody else somewhere else? Then you got to goes back to Josh's comment before. You got to be ready to move some people around so you can get them on the field and give them an opportunity to play.
With that same thing in mind, obviously the Chris Martin deal was unfortunate, of course, but certainly had to be easier to handle when it happened versus if it happened August, September.
Sign me up. You'd much rather be already dealt the cards, and then you can figure out how you're going to play. No one wants things happening like that, but at least give you. Ben Goodman, we were going in the other direction. Ben Goodman was going up to 270. Okay, to go play defensive end. That's where he was going. Okay, called him in, not so fast, big boy. Okay, time to go on a diet. So he went from eating like a pig to starving himself, He wasn't too happy with me on that day right there, but the good thing about Ben is Ben just wanted to get his butt on the field, and it gave him an opportunity, now he's been running drills, linebacker drills, instead of just defensive lineman drills, and, his body now matches that. It didn't at the time.
Two freshman quarterbacks from Kansas City. It seems like Jordan's got the big arm, Montel, the all-around athlete. Are they competing with different set of skills?
I don't think they're the same player. It'll be interesting how it plays out, but in the beginning they're going to do the same things. Once somebody gets, works their way up the depth chart, then I kind of do what they can do. I don't do what things they can't do. And don't misinterpret that Montel can't throw the ball, because Montel can throw the ball, and he's an exceptional athlete. I think that he's had a really good summer for us as well.
Charlie, you mentioned the running backs, the number that you have. Do you envision a scenario where it's guys fighting for the carries, or do you see a scenario where you could be, giving carries to 3 or 4 guys?
I think we'll be running the ball a lot. And I think we'd be stupid not to. So we'll just see how it goes. You got to start with one. And until James is beaten out, James the guy. He's earned that right. You want Tony to not get any touches? We don't want Tony not getting any touches either. I talked about, Darian, and talked about Taylor, but you want Tony just detached all the time, never touching the ball? I'm not that dumb. He's getting touches too. So I think that means we better plan on running it a bunch.
With that being said, how innovative do you get offensively, having maybe 5 starting running backs on your roster to try to get them involved at the same time?
I think if we can't throw the ball, we won't win, as was proven last year. We couldn't throw the ball. We could run it against everyone, okay, but we couldn't throw the ball, couldn't score points, okay, and couldn't win. I think that just the opposite of most other teams, I think our passing game could take the pressure off of our running game, whereas most teams go in and say, well, the running game could take pressure off the passing game. I think if we can come out here and start slinging it around a little bit, okay, and get to more of a 50-50 ratio where we don't go into a game saying we're going to run it 50 or 60 times. Now, if you run, I would personally like to be one of those guys, if you ran it 50 times, that's because you were winning by about 50 points. Okay, in reality, I'd like to get to more of a 50-50 mix. By the end of the year, I'd like to think that, you threw it and ran it about the same amount of times. So I'm thinking a little different based off of last year. You look at us last year, you say, well, this team's just going to run the ball. I don't think, if we can't throw it, I think that we'll, everyone that plays against us will be spending all the time in the off season, trying to figure out how they're going to shut down the run game.
over the next few weeks or so, what's left for you to see from Jake Heaps? What does he need to do to get ready for the season?
Carry over what we've seen so far, because if what we've seen so far is what we get, I think we're all gonna be happy. That's what we gotta see. I mean, it's gonna be a little different now. The whole tempo changes now. This isn't spring ball anymore. Okay, this is guys trying to earn positions for the next couple weeks. Okay, and it's gonna be very competitive out there. Now, you know, it's a little different when you got the better players you got playing on defense, puts more of a challenge on the quarterback. And, you know, he's got new players to integrate into the passing game. You know, how can you mesh with them? Do you guys, how's your relationship? You know, are you on the same thought process when it comes to breaking off a route? I mean, I think that we've all been very, very, very upbeat and pleased with how things have gone with Jake. But now's the next step. We're just at one step. We got to get to the next step, you know. And I think if what we're anticipating ends up happening, I think we got a chance.
A lot of people kind of feel like they heard the same things about Dane Chris last season going into the year. What separates those two players?
I just also said one critical thing. Okay, one critical thing. Okay, and the critical thing was Dan was coming off a couple of knee injuries and a beat down. And I said that we're not really going to know until the real bullets start flying. Okay, that's really not been the case with Jake. He ran the scout team, got the crap kicked out of him every single day. When he wasn't throwing a touchdown pass, which was about every third play. But the other two plays, he was getting the crap kicked out of him. Okay, so it wasn't like what was going on with Dane. He was getting beat up by the defense every day because he was running the show team quarterback. Okay, Jake's been perfectly healthy. Jake's issue are totally different issues than Dane had. Dane, in his defense, okay, was you know, it's been a while since, you know, the real bullets have been flying, and I think the situations were totally different.
He's got better weapons to work with too this year than Dane had last year.
You'd like to think we're better in a lot of different areas. You know, let's start with coaching. I don't think the coaches did a real good job, starting with yours truly. I don't think any of us did a very good job. 1-11, I don't think anyone did a very good job. Maybe Reggie Mitchell. Maybe I should give him a raise.
Charlie, did you ever think how much different this whole offseason would have been had you guys won a conference game, gotten rid of that losing streak?
No, I would have been miserable anyway, to be perfectly honest with you. Because then what do you say, that we won 2? Whoopee. Not to be sarcastic, but I'm dead serious. I mean, I absolutely hate losing. Okay, and I understand you are what you are. So we're a 1-11 team that right now is 0-0. And it wouldn't make a difference what our record was last year. I would not have been satisfied. We blew the Rice game, they kick a field goal at the end, and then TCU turns it over 6 times, but we still can't beat them. Then we go to Northern Illinois and blow that lead. And let's not talk about Texas Tech in double overtime, or let's not talk about blowing the Okie State game while we're at it when we got it cut to 6 and the ball's on the 30-yard line. And how about giving up a touchdown pass to Texas with 11 seconds to go? Other than that, I did a wonderful job. And to be perfectly honest with you, I blame me. I truly blame me. So in the summertime, I don't think about those good things that happened. Those couple of good things like going ahead and, you know, and beating Texas. Would that have been good for our program? You betcha. You know, would that have made a difference for the psyche of the team? Without a doubt, it would have been different. But then you're sitting here in 2-10, you know, and I'd still be miserable. And I promise you, I've lived through that season, you know, multiple times, and I've thought about the good things and the bad things. And would that have been one more good thing to harp on? You betcha. I agree with you 100%. It would have been significantly different, especially at that time. At that time, it would have made a big difference. But I blame me, I don't blame them.
And it made a big difference for the players in how they right through the offseason?
I don't think so at all. I think that they have a chip on their shoulder, and I think that I think that that's been kind of their mentality. It's not one that I put on them, it's one that they've had. Hey, look they hear everyone say how crummy you are. They read it all. They hear it all. They see all the prognosticators. I mean, they're not, they're college kids. They get it. And no one wants to be a loser. Okay, I think that they would have been driven. Look at that quarterback that was waiting, that couldn't play at all. Okay, he was waiting in the woods to come out when we got back from Morgantown. I'm surprised he wasn't sitting in my condo waiting for me. I think that I've been very pleased overall with their attitude starting the day after West Virginia. I think it goes all the way back to there. And I don't think having beaten any one of those teams would have done anything other than give us some temporary relief, because it's still not good enough.
Coach, it could be argued perhaps that your biggest losses were on the offensive line. You singled out a lot of players that impressed you on the offensive line. Can you talk about the unit as a whole and your optimism that they can be as good or maybe even better than last year's unit?
We won't be as experienced. I think we'll be bigger and more physical. We will lack in experience now, in comparison now. So the experience has a lot of value. Okay, but I think that we'll be bigger and more physical. And as you notice in recruiting, that's the direction I'm going. I want big guys. I want big physical guys. I want guys that aren't the nicest people. Okay, that's what I want. Because every week when I sit there and watch the tapes, remember now, I have to watch the opposing offense too. I don't just watch the defense. And that's what they're all playing with. So, I don't want a bunch of 280-pound linemen. Bring me big guys. Bring me those guys. Bring me the guys that they're playing with. So that's the direction we're going in recruiting.
Charlie, when people look at Marquel Combs, what are some ways that he can impact the game? Will it be obvious for people when they're watching?
I think that with an interior defensive lineman, even though he's listed, left end tackle, it's how quick they go off the ball. And I think that is a strength of his quickness off the ball. And I think that, and especially in this league, that there's a lot of value to that. Now, being in the right position is the next part. Okay, but he's very quick off the ball.
You mentioned during the spring, I think, or maybe earlier, about defensive players, maybe like him, for example, tend to maybe have a personality that kind of has that it factor that can add something to a defense. How have you seen that since he's been here, and what has his kind of off-the-field personality been like?
Well, personally, to be honest with you, tonight now I'm going to tell him to shut up. I've let him talk all he wants to, but as of tonight now, I want to hear me talk, not him. Okay, so he'll probably hear that several times in the next couple of weeks. I'll let him crank it back up in September. For the time being, I just want everyone to shut up and go to work. That's what I want him to do. I don't want to hear people talking. Talk is cheap. We've all had a lot to say and haven't done a damn thing. So it's time to shut up and go to work.
You talked about Sterling with his transformation, and kind of jumping on what you just said about big, nasty, mean guys. Is he there mentally? I mean, has he, you said he's transformed, but has he transformed his mentality as well?
I think you'll like Aslan, or else I wouldn't have him listed first.
Sure.
I think you'll like it.
And just
me moving him to left tackle should tell you all you need to know to answer that one.
Sure.
Because left tackle other than center, you got to get center taken care of. But the number one position with a ready quarterback is a left tackle. You're losing a lot of experience at that center and left tackle positions that we were just talking about right now. Yeah. But I think putting the smart guy, look, I had smart guys right through the depth chart at center. All three of those guys are very, very smart. Okay, and I wouldn't put Aslam over left tackle if I didn't think that he could, compete over there at a high level.
And then with same thing, like we were just talking about Lewandowski, you obviously talked about moving it. the intelligence is there, the size is there. Are there limitations that he'll face at center?
Well, actually, it was nice to be able to see somebody give a shotgun snap and land in the quarterback's hands. That's a good, that's a good place. That's a good place to start. You know. So he spent a lot of time with Heaps this summer. I wasn't around to watch it, but Jake was happy. So if Jake's happy, then I'm happy.
Charlie, you said talk is cheap, and as you move this thing forward, were you surprised or were you cognizant how much traction your comments in Dallas got, or was it just a slow news day for all of us?
It's almost comical. I mean, did they not watch our team last year? I mean, give me a break. And, anyone who came over to our table, when we sat there and talked about it, or anyone who knows me personally, knows I put myself as the leader of that group. The national guys want to immediately throw you under the, say you're throwing your team under the bus. I always sit there and say, what could I have done? But whose record does that 1-11 go on? The last time I checked, it goes on under my name, right? Kansas football and me. Okay, so I'm the leader of that. How else are you going to describe it? You want me to give it a more cleaner way? It wasn't very good. Okay, I could have said that. Okay, but I really said, what I said is what I really talk, how I talk to recruits. It would be a Sunday afternoon. A guy comes into the game. We just played Iowa State. I got a recruit in my office. We wear the black uniforms. I got everything planned. It's senior day. We go and get whooped at home. All this great motivation that I was planning. How'd that work out? So now it's Sunday morning. I'm sitting with a guy in my office. And he's saying, do you think I can play? I said, did you watch the game? That's one of the reasons why they say yes. One of the reasons why they say yes is because they can envision themselves playing early on. I think it's unethical to sit there and tell a recruit that they're going to start. I don't think you should ever tell them that. I think you could say, you saw the product, do you think you can start here? And if you don't think you can, maybe you should go somewhere else. Or maybe you're playing the wrong sport. That's not a dumb thing to say. Okay, did I know when I answered the question honestly, which I did, that it was going to get that traction? I didn't even have a clue. I was clueless, but people have told me I've been clueless about several other things. So that is not the first time that I've been called.
Coach, outside of Dexter at the safety position, you have a lot of people that most of us don't know much about. Can you talk about both strong and free?
Isaiah has very, very, very excellent range. That was one of the things that's one of the reasons why he's actually running one, even though he's just getting here. Because we need somebody with range. You need, if you don't have range in this league, you got a problem. Now, we really liked in the springtime both Tevin Shaw and Alex Matlock, but they weren't consistent enough for us to list them as a one. And if we're not happy with the safety position, you already know that we always could take Cassius and put him at the safety position. But right now, we want to give